Hello, everyone. This week I wanted to talk about the challenge in photography. And I don't mean being able to come up with new ideas or taking good photographs. I mean on the business side of things. So I take photographs because I want people to be seen. I want them to have something to have and let them go back and look at a particular moment of their life, right? To celebrate who they are. But at the same time, all of that requires money, right? I do my own prints, so there's the cost of the paper, the ink, the printer, and these are the ones that I don't send out to have done on frames or on metal or canvas. So in addition to that, obviously, is all the time that I put into learning the craft, practicing the camera equipment, etc. So a balance has to be struck between doing this because you want to do it and you want to celebrate people and paying the bills, being able to buy the equipment and things. I have a quote-unquote day job that takes care of the bills and allows me to come up with new equipment. So when I do volunteer work, like at the fort, and I provide photographs, I have another source of income that allows me to handle that. It would be nice if my source of income were the photography, right? But if that was my source of income, think of what you would need as a source of income to pay your bills, right? You have bills every month. You have experience with how much you spend every month. Now, there may be some things in there that you could trim, but you've got a baseline. In addition to that, you're going to have to consider factors such as insurance, not only for your photography business, but you have to consider the insurance for vision, right? Dental, medical. You're going to have to, being self-employed, pay into Social Security and Medicare. So there's additional expenses that you'll see on your paycheck that will help you see about where you're going to be. Now, the Social Security and Medicare will be a little different because your employer pays half, and you'll have to take a look at what the medical would actually cost you, what a vision plan would cost you, what a dental plan would cost you. You could do without these things. I would recommend that you budget these in. Once you've got that number, now you know what you have to make in a year to cover your expenses. Now you need to factor in what you want to do in addition to just covering expenses, right? Do you want to take some time off? Do you want to go on trips? Once you've got that done, now you need to factor in how many jobs you're going to need based off of what you are going to charge. And both of those numbers can be adjusted. If you're doing digital photographs for $200, there's no way you're going to make a living doing that without working a lot of time. At the same time, you don't want to charge so much that you price yourself out of the business. However, what you're going to charge isn't going to be cheap. Take, for example, and I've used this example many times, a wedding photographer. Now, for me, when I'm doing portraits, I can spend up to 15 minutes working on a photograph. Sometimes less, sometimes more. And that's being used to doing retouching. I shoot in RAW format. Every photo needs some kind of retouching to it. So when I add that three-dimensionality to the photograph by doing brightening and shading, it takes time. So if I were doing a wedding, I would probably end up having to do that for at least the bride, groom, and the wedding party in those photographs. And the audience would be a typical event type photograph. In other words, you get a good photograph, you do some color grading on it, and punch up the contrast, etc., just to get the photo to look good, but you're not taking that extra step to make it three-dimensional, for example. Follow that up with, you still have to go through all the photographs and pick out the ones that you think are the best. You're going to have to pitch that to the client as to which ones you think are the best, how you think they should be displayed. For example, maybe a nice big piece of wall art for the bride and groom, or if it's a very close family, the bridegroom and the bridesmaids and groomsmen. Maybe an album, right, of all the pictures put together. All of that's going to have a cost, a production cost. It's going to cost you something to have these items made. But at the same time, you have to take into account all of the time you took. Because if you're doing a wedding and it takes you a couple of days to retouch the photographs, talk to the client, figure out what they want, get it all done and ordered. You're going to have to proof everything when it comes in, obviously. All of that time is time that you can't do other jobs, right? You're busy with this one job. So you're not talking about just the amount of time it took you to take the photographs. But you know what your bills are going to be. And you know what the costs are going to be for you to have these things made up. And you have to factor all of that together. And the challenge to a photographer is trying to balance out, shall we say, reasonableness. You need to pay your bills. You need to live. But at the same time, you want to share this art with clients so they can experience the joy of that moment. So a lot of people make it seem very simple. No, you just charge this, you charge that. And if, as a photographer, your goal is to just do this for a living, and that's the reason you got into photography, that makes it a little bit of an easier decision. But if you got into photography because you wanted to share with someone a moment of joy, a celebration of their life, that is a different metric. And doing the costs will necessarily cut down on how much you can do that for people. But at the same time, you got better so that you could share things with people and be better at what you do. And you got to pay your bills, right? If your goal is to even do photography because you want to celebrate people, you need the time to do that. And working 40 hours a week does not afford you the amount of time necessarily that you're going to need to do that. It's not going to give you the freedom to do a midweek photo shoot, for example. It may not give you the freedom to even do things on the weekends, depending on your job. Or you're going to burn yourself out because you're working 40 hours a week during the week and then shooting all weekend and trying to crank out all the photographs and get all the editing done in 2 days because you have to go back to work on Monday. So it's a balancing act. It's a challenge to the photographer. In addition to all the other challenges of marketing and salesmanship and getting all the right vendors that you want, that you trust to create your artwork for you, it's a lot of challenge involved in that. And then you have to add in, what am I going to charge? It's not easy. It can be very rewarding when you see a person's face when you've created the artwork for them and you get to see what their expression is and what they think of it afterwards. But at the same time, you can't ignore yourself. You can't ignore your expenses and your time and your value. Bottom line, there's no easy answer. Your drive to create artwork for somebody has to be tempered with the bills at the end of the day. It's not an easy mathematical equation that you can just punch some numbers into, and it's something that when you get done with it, you have to live with what you've come up with. Right? You can't go out and say, you know, I've charged too much, now I'm going to do a sale, because then everybody will just wait for you to do a sale again. And in the meantime, between your points of sale, you're going to have no work or have little work. So you have to balance it out. There's no easy answer to it. I recommend looking around at websites of other photographers in your area. I've done this, and I've seen photographers that I know there's no way in the world that they're paying their bills on it. It's just too little. And if you were let's say, a wedding photographer, and you see wedding photographers charging $5,000 to $10,000 for their wedding, think about that. At $5,000, if I do 20 weddings a year, all right, that's $100,000. Okay. It's $100,000 less what it cost me for the artwork to get created, the cost of the albums, the cost of the wall art, whatever we're creating here for the client. But it's $100,000. That's 20 weddings in a year that you have to do. And if it takes you 3 days to do it, that's 60 days worth of work plus the wedding. So about 80 days. And you might say, well, that doesn't seem like much, 80 days. Yeah, it's a lot of work to do. And a lot of that's going to be getting the client in the first place, right? You've got to be able to get the client in order to provide for the client. So it's 80 days of photography work and another 300 or 285 days of bookkeeping, advertising, getting clients, and let's not forget, advertising is not free. So of that $100,000, not only do you have to take out what it costs you to get the artwork done, but all of your advertising, travel time, wear and tear on your car, cost of equipment, cost of replacing equipment, cost of the insurance to insure your photography equipment and ensure that if something happens, like a umbrella, for example, that you're using to soften an image, falls over and damages something at a venue, that's all covered. This isn't to be discouraging. It's just to remind everybody that it's not as simple as buying a camera and starting to take pictures. There are things that you need to step back and consider when you're doing this kind of work. And that's what I got for you guys this week, and I will talk to you all next week.